Hello, everyone, and welcome to Blind Buys, a brand new podcast where we watch and discuss movies we've bought sight unseen. I'm Josh, and with me, as always, for the first time, I guess, here is my collector in crime, Jesse.
Hey, everybody.
That's right, it's 2026. The world is falling apart, so what better to fall back on than stacks and stacks of plastic, right?
And stacks of plastic and slip covers, stacks of plastic and magnetic cases. Oh man, so many wild formats here. Yes.
But before we get in too deep, we should probably introduce ourselves a little bit to the listeners. So, Jesse, why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got started building a film collection, that kind of thing.
Yeah, so my roots in movie watching, I grew up in the VHS era. And so had just a stack of VHS tapes that me and my sister would watch over and over again. Those movies kind of like, earned my bones. So having a library of movies at my fingertips is something I've kind of always had. Grew up going to video stores, of course, and kind of first got into collecting when I was in college on DVDs, and had a decent sized collection of movies that we could watch in our dorm room and stuff. And it was a lot of fun. And I would see stuff like Criterion's on the shelf at Barnes and Noble. And I had a couple of Wes Andersons, something like that, but then sort of fell out of it and kind of picked up when I got back into movies via podcasts, maybe 8 years ago. And it really sort of kicked into high gear when I remember it was the big Bergman box Criterion edition came out.
Oh, yeah.
And that was when I really started to sink deeper back into the hobby. And I am where I am now. But also I live in the Seattle area, and we are privileged to have Scarecrow Video still alive and going here in Seattle. It's a video store, a brick and mortar video store. It's a nonprofit, and they have 154,000 titles and counting. It's the biggest publicly accessible archive of videos of movies in the world, really. And you can rent them. You can rent them all just like a Blockbuster. So the stuff that I don't have, I can get there. And it really just opens your eyes to the breadth of material that's out there that you can't find anywhere else. Or if you wanted to have access to all that, it would cost you hundreds of dollars a month from a streaming service. So those two things, the collecting and having Scarecrow right at my fingertips, have sort of led me to a new frontier in collecting and watching.
Yeah, that's awesome. I saw the other day that you got to program a shelf at Scarecrow. How does that work?
Yeah, so they're a nonprofit, so if you have a membership at a certain level, you get to curate either a couple of shelves or a whole end cap. I have a shelf. It's 20 titles, and you can pick a theme. You can do anything you want. You could have the one person has an end cap right now that's movies that were or became pinball machines. So it could be anything. You could pick any organizing principle you want. And I did that. Sort of, yeah, it's really neat. I mean, there's stuff, you look at the list of movies on there, there's there's a Big Lebowski pinball machine somewhere, because that's on the shelf. So it really lets you see what other members' interests are. And I chose, it's called Kids Crucible. So it's movies mostly from my childhood that were just when the stakes were a little higher for kids in movies and things felt a little more dangerous. So, things like, like Labyrinth or The Witches, stuff like that. Yeah. And some deeper cuts like The Peanut Butter Solution, which is this really strange Canadian film from the 80s. So yeah, I've got that up live at Scarecrow right now. It's a lot of fun.
All right. I'm going to have to check out some of those. I don't even think I've heard of The Peanut Butter Solution. Maybe that'll be a future episode of this podcast if we play our cards right.
Yeah. So how about you, Josh? How'd you get into this?
So movies in general, I've always been kind of a big deal for my family. We grew up having, Friday movie nights, and typically, G-rated fare pretty much until I was in middle school. And I did grow up around the tail end of the Blockbuster era, so I definitely got a taste of what it was like to kind of browse a video store and kind of get a feel for the people that were there and the titles that you could maybe look at but never touch, for a kid my age. And then as I got older, I started getting interested in older titles or fare outside of Disney or animated works and stuff. So I ended up discovering Criterion first. I purchased a Blu-ray with my very own money, like my first paycheck ever. I purchased the Blu-ray copy of It's a Mad, 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 Mad World. I was obsessed with like old comedy stars of the day, and so I had found out about this movie. I wanted to track it down. That's how I discovered Criterion, and from there, my collection has kind of grown steadily since then. So I think I'm going on 10 years of collecting at least. Especially during college, I picked up, discovering new labels, getting a 4K player and letting the world of film kind of invade my life. But yeah, that's pretty much about me.
Maybe we should also tell the people a little bit about how we got connected. So we both listen to a podcast called 70 Millimeter, but they have a Discord community called the VHS Village, and we met there and just kind of connected on a lot of the same types of interests. There's a channel for physical media and collecting, and we're both kind of very active in that space. And then we both ended up on a sort of offshoot podcast where we talked to each other about our 4 Letterboxd favorites at the time. Letterboxd, also a critical kind of on-ramp for me getting back into movies. And it was an awesome conversation. I think Josh thought, let's do more of this. And I said,
sure.
yeah, that would be great. That'd be great. So that was kind of like how we connected to start this project. So Josh, what is a blind buy?
Yeah, so for those not familiar with the term, a blind buy it could be anything, but in this case, it's a movie that we've purchased without ever having seen it before. And so people might be asking, how does that happen? Why would you buy something that you have no context for, that you've never seen? I know this is true for many collectors out there. It's certainly true for me. Once you start down the rabbit hole of buying physical media, you're bound to find yourself interested in titles that you've just never seen, because there's so much out there to discover. Like you mentioned Letterboxd, like it's almost impossible to like have a Letterboxd account and not encounter things that you've never even heard of, just because of the sheer number of people, out there in the world who are logging titles, making lists, that kind of thing. And then, even in the VHS Village Discord, that physical media channel is like, I'm constantly finding out new things from new people who have, crazy different interests from me, or maybe I realize that like my interests align with these people, and so I want to pay attention to what they're recommending. Plus, with all the cool Blu-ray boutique labels out there making new and old movies alike pretty accessible, all things considered, it's easier than ever to kind of just take a chance on something you've never seen. So over the years, that's just kind of been my deal, is picking up things recommended by other people or that I see online. And slowly that stack has built because, frankly, I've just bought more than I have the time in my life to watch. So my pile has grown significantly.
Yeah.
And I know yours has too.
Mm-hmm. It certainly has and continues to. It was just Christmas, and I was telling a relative about the podcast, and he said, yeah, why would you buy a movie you haven't seen before? And I mean, people do it with books. Like most people who are buying a book, you probably haven't read the book before. So it's kind of the same thing. And I've always kind of had a collector mentality, I guess. And I'm also a librarian by trade. So having the thing to watch now and to watch in the future has real value to me, because there's no guarantees with streaming, even digital ownership. And I have 2 children, and the idea of them having a wall of movies that they can just kind of discover interesting things on their own and pick them off the shelf to watch at home is really appealing to me, because that's basically what I had growing up. It wasn't not as many titles as I have now, but some of them were like quote unquote my parents' movies. So movies that I would never have chosen to watch on a streaming service. Like, I mean, I'm contemplating buying the Out of Africa 4K because, no joke, my mom had Out of Africa on VHS that she'd recorded off of HBO or something. Yeah. And as a 7-year-old, I watched that movie dozens of times. Like it's weird, a strange fact about me, but, and I know that movie's reputation and I can't defend it, but it's like, I have an association with that movie. So, That's how the stack grows.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same way. We have a baby on the way as well. Here in the next few weeks, we'll be adding another member to our family, and so I've been thinking a lot over the last several months of what like of myself do I want to like impart on my child, and I think it is very much my like personality, my tastes in the world, my references and stuff are so informed by the movies that I watch and the movies that I get recommended to me by people, the movies that like my wife and I watch over and over again because we love them so much, and not wanting those to disappear. And like you said, also wanting to give my child a way to discover things that they might like that they definitely wouldn't have sought out on their own, with that shelf of movies. I definitely growing up had like, those DVDs or VHS tapes that would just kind of like appear in the house, Like I have no memory of buying them. I have no memory of my parents bringing them home. It's just like these 20 titles or whatever like are just living next to the TV, and if we don't know what to watch, this is what we're going to put on. And then even a couple of my parents' titles like the Rocky films or whatever, I definitely never would have sought those out, but my dad had that whole collection. And so, branching out a little bit just because they were there, I kind of hope to replicate that experience for sure.
That's great. Yeah, and so each week we're going to be picking a title off the pile that we haven't watched, and it will be new to one of us or possibly both of us, and we're going to watch it and talk about it. And maybe talk about some aspects of the release itself.
Yeah, it's definitely more than an excuse for us to go through our owned and unwatched piles, but that's definitely one of the perks. One of the major perks of doing this show is getting those numbers down. But yeah, I mean, it really is as simple as that. We both love movies. We love collecting physical copies of them. So this is going to be a fun, creative platform for us to hopefully encourage others to do the same, especially in this, era of streaming and studio mergers where titles kind of seem to disappear like on a whim. You pull up HBO Max and you're expecting to find this title that's been there for years, and suddenly it's gone and it doesn't exist anywhere else. What are you going to do?
Yeah, there are some TV shows that Disney and HBO have produced that you can't watch anymore, at least not legally, because they've pulled them from their own services. So physical is a great way to make sure that you have this. If you like it, you have it, and you don't have to worry about it going away. So Josh, tell us a little bit more about what you're working with in terms of collection, unwatched. What's the proportion of watched to unwatched, the blind buys that you have currently on your shelf?
Letterbox is the main way that I keep track. I've got a list of my physical media collection, and then from there I've got linked all of my other lists with like the different labels and stuff. Yeah, so currently my physical media collection is sitting at 63% watched. I own, as of yesterday, 1,447 titles, and I've watched 912 of them. So what about you?
Yeah, that's about where I'm at. My percentages I've got on my physical media collection list, I'm at about 70% watched. So, and about the same number, a similar number of titles. I'll just put it that way. So there's plenty to talk about, plenty to get through, and that number will probably only grow because there's a lot of jangly keys out there. Whether it's like a movie that's just new releases that are coming out all the time in theaters. I do watch some movies on streaming. Movies get talked about on podcasts. So there's always distractions from the huge pile of movies that I have that I haven't watched yet. So there'll definitely be stuff for us to talk about for some time to come, however long this project lasts. And I'm very excited about getting through some more of it with you.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited to get into this. And I think as we were kind of discussing, like structure of the show, how we kind of want the episodes to go, with each episode, one of us will pick a movie. It doesn't matter whether the other one of us has seen it or not, or even if the other one of us has it in our collection or not. Basically just the chooser for the week will pick something from their collection, and the other person will either watch it for the first time, watch it again, find a physical copy of it, or maybe watch it on streaming. Beyond structure of the show, I thought it might be fun for this introductory episode for us to kind of dive into some of our favorite labels, discuss the things we look for in a physical media release, that kind of thing. I am curious, what percentage just kind of ballparking, would you say you get your physical media either from like ordering online, getting shipped to your house, or like going to Scarecrow or going to even like a secondhand store or whatever and just picking something off the shelf that looks like appealing to you?
Over the last year, so Scarecrow went through a bit of an existential crisis money wise about a year ago, a little over a year ago. But the community came together and started going more often, so they're in good shape. But as part of my commitment to sort of being more involved with them, they started this. They started offering a discount if you're a member at a certain level on purchases because they purchase hundreds of movies a month basically for their own collection. So they also sell movies in the store and you can order through them. So I've been trying to do more of that. They send out like a pre-book or like a pre-order list essentially every week or two, stuff that's coming in, and you can say what you'd like to get and you get a bit of a discount.
Oh, that's
It's
awesome.
not Yeah, yeah, it's really cool. It's not as cheap as some other retailers online retailers you've heard of, but I'm sort of putting the money where I value it, into the things that I value, helping keep this place alive. Beyond Scarecrow, I also, I do Orbit. Orbit's a big one.
Yeah.
Direct from places like Vinegar Syndrome. I do wait for the sales because they happen all the time. Obviously, Barnes and Noble when the Criterion sale comes around, or Criterion Direct when they have their flash sales. I've weaned myself off the big online retailers, just sort of as a practice for ourselves. I try to shop small and independent as often as possible.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great way to do it. I'm kind of in a similar position. I've gotten away from, using Amazon and that kind of thing. Sometimes they have some pretty interesting deals and I'll browse there, but most of what I pick up these days is either being ordered through Orbit DVD, especially because if you have, I think it's if you buy three, you get free shipping or whatever. Yeah. So that's been a death trap for me more than once. Um,
Yeah, I've got to find two more things, right?
yeah, to justify
Yeah,
the free
right.
the free shipping.
Well, and they have the used section, so you can always browse their used goods, and that's how I've gotten a lot of Criterion, that's been a boon for my Criterion because their used sale prices are cheaper than even the Barnes and Noble sales, and they only sell good discs. They don't sell scratch stuff, so they're
Oh, that's awesome.
yeah, check that out. That's another thing for you to look at.
I can't spend more money than I already do, but maybe I can depending on how the show goes. But yeah, and I've learned a lot being in the VHS Village AV Club chat about predicting the dates of Criterion sales. Trying to hold out until things are less expensive than they are, and invariably I end up getting something in like the Blu-ray format, and then a 4K is announced, and then it's just why
Yeah,
did
it
I do
always
that?
happens. Yep.
But I bought a lot in the past from Diabolic, which I would recommend as well for less mainstream titles, and I think they stock very many new like 2025, 2026 releases.
Yeah, they're a boutique. They focus on boutique stuff for sure.
Yeah. And then I've got like an Entertain Mart kind of resell shop in a nearby mall that I'll go browse every so often. I find myself picking up like new release movies there more often than ordering those online, just because they're there and I'm like, oh, I remember I saw that in the theater. I might as well just pick it up. How often are you picking up newer releases like 2025 movies, 2026 movies, versus picking up movies that might be a bit older or maybe a bit more like obscure, that kind of thing?
Pretty rarely. I mean, Sinners is kind of a big example. Like Sinners, I picked up. I really loved Sinners. That was a 2025 release that I got pretty quickly. But I definitely am going toward catalog titles, boutique releases of forgotten stuff. I mean, my tastes have generally just skewed a little, like slightly older and deeper cut.
Hmm.
And I find myself also holding out until a boutique will put something out. Just because I like the extra. If I'm going to pay money for a release, I'd like to get something where some care and attention has gone into the presentation and the features and all that stuff. And that's definitely what's happening with the boutique releases. I mean, a lot of the studio stuff is just like you if you get the movie and a trailer, you're lucky. There might not be much else on there. And you'll get like a code for a digital download or something like that.
Yeah.
So not as many new movies, and I think for me at least, and this is partly what this project I think will help with is like I do want these things to be things I want to rewatch sometime in the future. Like, am I going to want to rewatch? And with the blind buy, that's the you roll the dice with the blind buy. You don't know if you'll want to rewatch that.
Exactly. Yeah. No, that makes sense. I've tried to be more discerning in the past year about newer stuff or stuff that I've already seen in the theaters about bringing it home. I definitely still picked up like Sinners, grabbed Superman that came out last year. Because I really enjoyed that. I've been collecting, like the MCU movies since they started, basically. I'll be picking up those every time they come out. But typically stuff that gets just like bare bones, studio Blu-ray release, I'm most likely not going to pick up unless there's some kind of like wild sale. Or if it's a horror title. If it's new and it's horror and I liked it, I'll probably end up grabbing it. That was making me think of, I think Arrow is putting out a special edition 4K of Evil Dead Rise, which came out a couple of years ago. And
Yeah, they've got a deal with one of the studios that I think like they sort of have to put out some of these newer things to get access to some of the older stuff that they want, and that's what's led to like they put out the Clash the Titans, which kind of felt weird for them, but I think that was part of whatever deal with whoever, I forget which studio it is, but that's kind of how they've come to put out some of those newer things that kind of seem like a bit of a curveball from Arrow, but it means they got access to lots of other amazing stuff that we get to then see.
Yeah, for sure. But that Evil Dead Rise was one of the titles that I bought, the studio bare bones release 4K after it left theaters. And so now I'm like, do I go for the Arrow title? Because there's probably going to be a lot of like cool essays and bonus features and stuff in there. But I've already spent the money on a 4K. Maybe if it was a Blu-ray upgrading to a 4K. But yeah, we'll see.
What are some of your favorite labels or the ones that you're watching closely these days?
I mean, obviously, Criterion is like the big name in collecting. It has been for years. And I'm always very interested to see what they put out every month. At this point, it's kind of like a given that I'm probably going to grab at least one of their new titles that they release, at any given time. I also just genuinely trust Criterion to be kind of not discerning necessarily, but like I don't think they're going to put out garbage, basically, that I'm not going to want to own. So definitely always watching them. Vinegar Syndrome for sure. I've started collecting a lot over the past like 2 years. Lots of their titles have been, recommended to me across various platforms. I've been discovering things that frankly I just didn't know existed, or even like people would care to, release them in these nicely packaged like formats and stuff. That's what I'm really grateful to Vinegar Syndrome for, and will probably be, looking out for a lot of their new releases, even though I'm not like a huge fan of their like selling tactics.
Yeah,
but
always a topic of conversation there. But yeah, once you get into Vinegar Syndrome, you've reached a sort of new plateau of of hell, perhaps, of your own personal hell of collecting,
right?
Because they're always gonna come out with something weird. They're like, oh, you like this thing? Well, take a look at this. And to say nothing of their, Melusine and their basically their softcore or less softcore porn line. There's a lot of interesting things that they're doing over there. And sometimes they sort of cross the streams with what they're putting out. But yeah, they do a lot of great work. And just the restoration work they do alone, making these like sometimes just trashy, like objectively trashy, but still fun movies look gorgeous. It's once you see what can be done with these, like if you've got the negative and you're willing to put in the time and effort, that's another one of the hooks for physical media, because like you may have seen this on like a 20-inch CRT in the 90s or something like that. And it was like a bowdlerized version of it, and here it looks beautiful, like kind of like you can see that these were things that people made and cared about. and the people who are putting out the releases, they care about them too. And so that sort of like, it's that sort of act of curation, and these movies become almost like offerings from people that say there's something cool about this and I want to show you what it is. And that's kind of what hooked me into stuff, into the collecting. Criterion and Vinegar Syndrome's kind of at two different poles, I guess,
Yeah,
of
definitely.
the world, but it still comes from the same place of curation and interest and care,
Yeah,
even though they're very different.
yeah. What about you? What are your favorite labels? What are you watching out for?
Yeah, Criterion, obviously, yeah. Within Vinegar Syndrome, what Cinematograph, the stuff that they put out under that sub label is just really it's just kind of like in my sweet spot. They just put out they just announced The Gambler, the James Caan movie, and which makes me think there's another drop coming tomorrow from Cinematograph, and I'm hoping that it is California Split, because that's as
Oh
soon
my
as
gosh.
yeah, as soon as they announced that what the sort of mission statement of that sublabel was, I was like, this California Split, Robert Altman's California Split with Elliot Gould is like one of those holy grail titles that has only been on a DVD or something, or a Blu-ray that's out of
Absolutely.
print. And so it would be perfect for them. And so that's like, I'm hoping that they're going to announce it soon. It sounds like, it feels like he's zeroing in on it. But anyway, yeah, Cinematograph is really great. I mean, Radiance out of the UK is just
Yep.
diving deep into like Italian crime movies and Japanese Yakuza movies and Soviet or Eastern Bloc animation. Really amazing stuff, like more than I can keep up with. I need to watch the stuff I've got from them first before I dive deeper. So they're great.
Yeah.
Deaf Crocodile is another big favorite of mine. They are unearthing weird genre movies from Finland and like other places, like kind of that were
Like
doing.
Czechoslovakia. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
Oh yeah, amazing stuff. And and again, the presentations on these things, the restorations and the presentations are really great. Arrow is always great. I mean, they're like the stuff that they're putting out, those Hong Kong movies, all like the John Woo films and stuff. So
yep.
I'm definitely watching those releases closely. Yeah, I mean, a little bit of everything, but those are some of the tops. Yep.
I think as far as like a kind of playing like a numbers game, I end up getting a lot of things from Kino Lorber because either they're on sale or like it's like the nicest version available for now. I feel like I have a ton of those in my collection. And Second Sight is something that I've been kind of
Oh yeah.
zeroing in on over the last, year or so. They put out a fantastic 4K of a movie called The Hitcher that just like blew my mind, and the presentation of it was so good that I had to like go back to their website and see like, okay, if they dedicated this much time to restoring this weird movie with like an incredible score that like I've just been thinking about ever since I saw it, like what else do they have out there for me to discover? So Second Sight for sure is one I want to
That's
mention
great.
as
Yeah.
was one I'm just keeping my eye on. Warner Archive is one that I've been adding a lot more of to my collection recently. The folks in the VHS Village Discord are very knowledgeable about all of this stuff as well. I'm sure we'll have some great guests in the future, but they kind of turned me on to the restoration work that Warner Archive is doing and just kind of reliably like releasing studio fare from the 20s through the 90s. Basically any of like the big or even like mid-level titles that you can think of are kind of up for grabs for them to restore.
Well, and their restoration work is just beautiful, especially for the price point. Like there's not much on the disc besides the movies, but the restorations look great, like much better than like the Warner Brothers proper releases. So those are like,
Yeah.
if there's a Warner Archive, even a Blu-ray, it's gonna look awesome, and is worth picking up. So yeah, you'll love Warner Archive.
Yeah, they've even got fantastic like Looney Tunes collections, the Tom and Jerry like golden era anthology that they put out just like a week ago. It was like instant day one buy for me. It arrived a couple days ago and I cannot wait to dig further into that. Because I had a bunch of those Tom and Jerry shorts, on DVD growing up or whatever. Excited to check those out.
Well, we've been going for a while, so should we talk about what the first proper episode's going to be about?
Yeah, absolutely. So, the first episode, the movie was my choice. I'm choosing to go with something that I feel like is a big blind spot for me. I have a ton of blind spots, just because of what I was, allowed and not allowed to watch growing up. Maybe what I haven't discovered until now.
And you're a young man.
So
You're younger than I am. I'll put it that way. So there, you're catching up. Yeah.
yeah, I'm still discovering, putting feelers out, seeing what I like. And this is a pretty big one, especially, for the folks in the VHS village and people I've become friends with, over the last several years. So my first blind buy pick is Almost Famous, directed by Cameron Crowe from the year 2000.
Yeah, and it's a pick that's tremendously. It's one of my all-time favorite movies. When I saw that this was recommended to you via a sort of game that we play in the VHS Village, I said this has to be the first episode. If this is a blind buy for you, this has to be it. It's sort of like a keystone in my coming of age, I guess, of sorts, and just in my collecting and lots of other things. So very personal movie for me, and I can't wait to talk about it.
I think that pretty much wraps it up for this introductory episode. Thanks for tuning in, everyone, and be sure to join us for our first proper episode. We'll be discussing Almost Famous, and if you're listening to this right now, it's available right now on the podcast app of your choice. You can also reach out to us if you want to leave us a note or a voice memo or ask us a question or anything like that. You can reach out to us at blindbuyspod@gmail.com, and we'll see you next time on Blind Buys.
Bye, everybody.